Okay, so it's been a while since I did my last update on the channel, so I thought I'd talk about something that I actually want to talk about for a while now, which is and something that just I feel like there's a lot of discussion on, so I thought I might as well put my piece out there. And it's like, so okay, first before we get started, I just want to establish some background, right? So one of the things that there's a lot of talk about, like argument about always, is like going into a creative career versus going into like a STEM career, right? Just to be general, you could do other stuff like I don't think accounting and stuff like that is included in STEM, but yeah, you could do accounting, you could do business. I put them all in the same like category, which is doing like an office job. And creative careers could be an office job too, right? I mean, like a writer, you sit in an office and write all day, but you're still doing creative work, hopefully. So like when you're doing a career that doesn't require you to be creative, you probably have to be creative in some other way, but just not like your job is to only create something, right? So if your job doesn't require you to be creative, right, that those type of jobs are like infinitely more preferred than the alternative, right? So like from the very beginning, parents, teachers, everyone will always tell you like, oh hey, if you do good in school, you can do good in college, you can get a degree, you can get a good job, and then you have a good future, right? That's what like all of us have been told for a while. That's been like the reality of our culture for like the past, I would say 60 years, since like 1950. Kind of feels crazy that 1950 was 60, almost 70 years ago, but yeah, that's been the custom, that's been the tradition. You do good in school, you put in the work in school, you get into a good college, you get a degree for whatever your profession is, you get a job. That's your life, right? I'm not diminishing that in any way, because I do respect that a lot. Like that has a lot of upsides compared to the other options, to the alternative. So like on the other hand, you have creative careers, right? And like creative careers are like, the first thing that they tell you in school is with a creative career, there's only a finite amount of positions. And that's like the biggest detriment to being a creative or being in a creative profession, is that only a certain number of people worldwide get paid to do this job. We're not like talking about, like, there are obviously a large number of jobs if you think about all the different types of languages and stuff like that, but let's just talk about the norm. Like you're one language person probably in North America, so you only have a finite number of, like, say you want to be a musician, right? And music is like one of those things that everyone wants to be a musician when they're young. Like, hey, you pick up your guitar for the first time and you're like, oh, hey, yeah, I want to do music. I want to be like Bruce Springsteen. I want to be Michael Jackson or whatever, right? So, like, the first thing that they tell you is, well, they discourage you, first of all. They're all like, hey, because I think rightly, right? What are the chances that you're going to be successful in that field if you start that, right? So they discourage you first off, and then so there's already like one obstacle you have to pass, which is like whoever is most important in your life, whether that be parents or teachers or friends or whatever. Maybe not friends to such an extent, but they'll be like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And if you cross that and you be like, yes, this is like, if you just decide that, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, I've decided that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to commit to doing it, right? That's like step 2. But you've already had to put more thought into your career choice than if someone who just, I'm not saying this is easy to do. I'm just saying that this is like the default option nowadays, especially where I'm from in India. Like engineering is the absolute, like, oh yeah, anybody can become an engineer. Like you can just go be an engineer, do some job and get paid, like get the big bucks, right? What was I talking about? Oh yeah. Okay. So step 2 is like deciding to do it, and you take all the classes and you put in all the work. You learn how to play the guitar, you learn how to play the piano, you fucking take singing classes, you do all that shit, and now you're only at step 2. Whereas if you're doing like, let's say you're doing computer science, right? Step 2 of computer science is join college. So in step 2 of becoming a creative person, in this example, a musician, you're not even like not even anywhere close enough to that. So then after you do all this, you have to ask yourself like, hey, am I ready? Am I good enough can I really do this? Can I actually like go from being this person who's playing guitar and it's like, oh, your teacher says you're good, but then can I go from being this to like actually getting paid to do this, being a professional? Like, will people want to listen to me? Maybe you did a few performances for like 50 to 100 people or something like that, and you're like, hey, I'm ready. I'm actually going to do this. This is something I want to do. I'm all in, right? But what if you don't? Like, what if you just casually doing that? And then you're like, you still tell yourself that you want to do this, but you haven't like gone all in. You haven't like given up on the idea of college. You haven't like put all your time into music, and where you like stop doing everything else. Like you still like hang out with your friends and stuff. I'm not saying don't hang out with your friends. Obviously, it's just an example, but it's like, what does that get you? And right, that's why people say don't do creative careers, right? Because the amount of effort that it takes to succeed is like exponentially high, because the number of paying jobs in that field are so low. You could probably be like a production engineer or something like that, maybe, but that requires college and a lot of education too. What was it? What was the point I was trying to make? Oh yeah, okay. So this whole point is like, being a creative person is not easy. Like from day one, you have to live with all this reality above you, right? So like, then when you've decided that this is going to be your field that you're going into, and that you're going to do this, and you're already there and you started doing it, there's like 5 other hurdles you have to cross, which is that being creative doesn't just come. Like you can go and do math problems all day and you can get better at math, but like when you're being when your job is to be creative, like you can't just like, or the traditional belief is that you can't just tell your brain like, hey, be creative right now, right? Because like the cliche in our culture is like, artists are artists. They're wild. They're crazy. They do whatever they want, right? There's no, you can't impose structure on them. How many movies have we seen where it's like the teacher tries to mess with the artist, and then there's like they suck, and then they just leave them alone. They go outside of the traditional system, and then they succeed, right? How many movies have we seen like that? So the point that I was trying to get to this whole time was like, when you're trying to be creative and your job is to be creative and you've given everything up to be creative, like you put all this pressure on yourself to do something. And when you can't do it, you feel like a total failure, right? You're like, oh my God, I gave up everything. I've committed to this 100%, and I still can't do what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I can't be creative even though that's all I want to do. Like you like doing it so much, but you can't like force yourself to do it, right? So this is where I was at like a year ago. So when I was at this place, I was like, I really wanted to write. Like writing is what I wanted to do. I really liked it. I had tried so many other things, but like writing is what really got me motivated to get up in the morning and like do stuff. And I like doing other stuff too. It's not like I spend my entire like 16 hours a day writing or whatever the fuck. If you see my YouTube channel, you know that I'm a man of many interests. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying you need to have one singular interest. I'm just saying like you need to pick one thing to like really specialize in, or do. But you can't be like, oh, I'm gonna split all my time equally between. I'm not saying you can't do that. You can totally do that. I'm just saying the amount of effort you put into everything that you want to be successful at has to be like an inordinate amount of effort. It doesn't have to be like all of your effort, but it has to be a substantial amount of effort, right? So, okay, what was I talking about? Yeah, creative process. So here we go. What I'm trying to say is you can actually get yourself to be creative at certain times. So my routine was like I used to go to class all day, come back, do all the house stuff, like eat, and then go to sleep, right? You go to sleep, wake up in the morning, do it all again. That's not an exceptionally demanding day, but it does give you just little enough time that you can justify not doing something productive in that time. So what I did was, just before I went to sleep, like the last hour, I just put on the TV, sat down with my laptop on the couch, and just wrote. I just said, okay, this is the time that I get during the day to write. I don't write the whole day, so this is the time that I'm going to give myself. And at first it was like super hard. I couldn't write at all. I could barely get anything done. I wrote like 200 words, something like that, every day. But I think the key to it is like, this is cliche, but I think it's very apt. That's why it's cliche. Is like, your creativity is like a muscle, right? And at times, sometimes you'll just be like, oh, hey, I randomly just got this huge idea. I have to put it down right away. So you put it down, and then everything's well in the world, everything's good and dandy, and everything's fine, and you feel great. But sometimes you feel like shit because you can't get anything done, right? So what do you do during those times? And this is what I did. I just gave myself an allotted time, and at first, nothing came. So I just sat there, did as little as I could, or as much as I could, and then went to sleep. But then after a while, after like 2 or 3 weeks, after like almost a month, it just started to happen. Like the 200 words a day became like 400 words, became 500 words, and then eventually, towards the end of the school term, I was writing like 700 to 1,000 words a day at night while studying for the finals and everything. And I was like, holy shit, this is pretty amazing. Why can't it be like this forever, right? And I mean, if I had stuck to that same routine, if the summer hadn't come around, I probably would still be doing that, and I would be very happy that I was doing that. So like the point is, no matter how much time you have in your day, for people, I'm talking to people like me who are not crazy manic people who don't work at all for a whole year, and then 5 days a year they write like 2 books and a movie, right? I'm not talking to those people. Those people, I'm sure they have their own problems. I'm not that kind of person. I can't talk to them. My advice will be entirely useless to them. So I'm talking to the people like me who work in tiny increments that feel too small at first, right? I'm saying stick at it. Eventually, they will be not substantial, but at least sizable chunks that you work in, right? That's what I'm trying to do right now, actually, with these podcasts and these discussion pieces. Is that at first I know they're going to be harder, but I hope over time they get easier, just like writing the book was. You know, it's not done. God knows. I wish it was. It's not. But eventually, I hope it feels that easy. You just have to do everything. Like I said in the last one, it's all about iteration. It's all about, I don't want to say practice, because practice doesn't create anything. It just develops your muscle memory. But I would say repetition, just doing it again and again. And everything you make is wonderful and special and all that, but I think it does take some repetition. So this is one of those weird motivational speeches. It just popped into my head all of a sudden. So I felt like I need to put that down, but hopefully that's of some help to someone. Just keep at it. Eventually what limited time you have will prove useful to you in the long run, but you do have to stick at it, right? I think that's the key. Like we all want to be that crazy person that writes a book in a day and then just doesn't do anything for the remaining 5 years that he's supposed to be writing that book. But we can't. Maybe we can't. It's just we have to live with what we have. We can't be whoever. We can't be exactly what we want to be. We have to deal with being who we are at some point. So hopefully that's useful. If not, who knows? Anyway, stay tuned for more stuff coming. I'm looking for someone to interview. Hopefully I find somebody. It's been harder than expected. I wanted to focus mostly on local creators, but you have to be interested in what they do to some extent, and I'm not a great enough interviewer or a nice enough person to just do it out of the kindness of my heart, so that's in the works. And I'm also like entering in all these writing contests just for fun, just because I'm in the summer and I need something to do. And I've kind of hit a major stall point with this book that I was writing over the school term. Hey, maybe I'll pick that up when the school term continues. Maybe that's a school book. Who knows? Anyway, stay tuned for that stuff on the Patreon. I'm planning to do like one writing piece per week, 2 of these discussion piece podcasts per week, and like at least 2 of the bigger interview podcasts per month. But that hasn't started yet. Hopefully we'll start soon. I'm in the works of doing that. Not yet confirmed on it. But anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.